Dr. Al Gurrier, please.
Harambe.
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 Habari gani, my brothers and sisters, and thank you so much for joining us today. First of all, I'd like to thank you, Sister Dawn, and your daughter for hosting our activities today. I'm very happy and pleased to see that the African American community has embraced the concept and principles of Kwanzaa and see them as a significant enough component of their life that they would embrace the celebration of Kwanzaa. And it is my pleasure at this time to be the director of our Kwanzaa celebration tonight. My name is Dr. Al Gurrier. I am a griot, a teacher, and a historian. Now, I'm sure you boys and girls in particular have an idea what a teacher and a historian is, someone who has studied and shares history, but you may not have heard the term griot before. Well, I am a proud, dynamic, positive, self-assured African-American role model, primarily because of the two wonderful parents I had who made great sacrifices to raise their children. As a griot, which is a Swahili term, which means the teacher. Pause here and think. We are in the process of using probably one of the most significant technologies ever afforded man as a human being as a method of communication. When I was your age, and if you are a child, I don't care how old you are, when I was your age, there was no such thing as the internet. As a matter of fact, when I was a youngster, there wasn't even a television. Now, shortly in 2 years, I will be fourscore. And that'll be one of the questions that'll be on our final exam today, for you to figure out exactly how old I am. But if none of this technology and means of communication was available as little as 50, 60 years ago, what do you think it was like in our mother Africa 100, 200, 300, 500, 1,000 years ago? That's where the griots were born. And the griot was simply a villager who went from village to village carrying the message of the day. And as the griot would enter a village, the villagers would greet the griot with the Swahili term, habari gani. And literally translated, habari gani means, what's the news? So the griot was the person who would come and bring the news of the day. There were no newspapers. People didn't deliver a newspaper to your hut in Africa. So the primary means of communication among us as African people in the far distant past were griots who came from village to village, sharing the information of the day, the history, and the culture. So today, I am your griot, I am your teacher. I have had some experience teaching. I have taught from primary school through college. So we are having lessons today for our toddlers, our primary school children. There'll be a point where I share specific information that I'll expect for you junior high school, senior high school, and college students to do. And of course, we also will expect the youngsters who are young at heart, regardless to what age and how many scores you've been around, to join us and participate in our activities today. So as a participant in this process today, from the outset, I want to say to you what the most important thing you have to do today, tomorrow, and the rest of your life. I have not started and said we're doing a Kwanzaa, I've not said anything about Kwanzaa yet. So I'm emphasizing to you the importance of the point that I want to make at this time. And that point is, and it's exemplified in one of our principles, and I'll talk about that later. That point is work. The way we get from where we are as a people to where we have been as leaders of this world, or wherever we want to go in the future, we must do the work. And boys and girls, work is important to you. It's what will build your character, your stamina, your ability to get things done. And there's work for everyone hearing my voice today. For the school-age children, it's got a name. It's not just work. It's homework. Now, I think you got that message. We cannot expect any individual, organization, or institution to do for us what we have to do for ourselves. And what we have to do for ourselves, and I'm talking about you personally as an individual, as a human being, be you 2 years old or 92 years old, you have got to do the work. And the work is embodied in the process of learning. And that's what tonight's experience hopefully will be all about, a learning experience. Because we learn, according to Amos Wilson, in his book, The Developmental Psychology of the Black Child, Amos Wilson says we begin to learn in the womb. So if we accept Dr. Amos Wilson's premise, then we learn from the womb to the tomb. And that is the work that will bring us to wherever we want to go in this life. We have to do the work. So for me and tonight, I'm doing the work. God gave me a talent. And one day I will go to meet my maker and he will ask me, what did you do with the talent that I gave you? And there's a story in the Bible about how the master gave out talents to the servants. And on our judgment day, we will go to meet our master. And at that time, our master would say to us, how have you used the talents that I have given you? And that's what our work as an individual is. We have got to work to find the talents that the Lord has given us and use them to improve us, our community, and our world. So the process that we are talking about today is a process that is designed specifically to help us live the good life. And everything that I've said and all that I've talked about so far is living the good life. And the good life is in our hands. we have to take advantage of the opportunity that is presented to us to accomplish and achieve the good life. And the best way that I've found to do that is through the celebration of Kwanzaa. Kwanzaa. Kwanzaa is a key Swahili word, and the celebration of Kwanzaa was created by Dr. Malana Karinga in 1966. And I'm really ecstatic to see the extent toward all of us celebrating us, because I define Kwanzaa as a celebration of us. It is a celebration of our history, of our culture, our families, and our world. And to say that Kwanzaa is only 54 years this year, it is celebrated on every continent. It is celebrated by every race, color, creed, every religion, national origin. Now celebrate Kwanzaa. And why has the world that we are a part of embraced the concept and idea of Kwanzaa? Because Kwanzaa speaks to a set of values by which to live. Boys and girls, unless you stand for something, you will fall for anything. And your first and foremost teachers are your parents. The first and foremost teachers of children are their parents. And while you may be young boys and girls today, and this may be the first time that you're celebrating Kwanzaa, part of the reason we even celebrate Kwanzaa, one of the more significant reasons, is that we will be able to say to our boys and girls, this is how we respect and revere our history, our culture, those who have gone before us, those on whose backs we stand, those who have made sacrifices so that we can be here to live the good life. Tomorrow, next week, next year, next generation, it will be the children sitting here at our sides today, listening to and absorbing the message of Kwanzaa, who will take that message and incorporate it into their lives. Dr. Morris Francis Xavier Jeff once told me that our children are a message we send to the future. So if we are going to recapture the greatness that we were on this earth, then we must begin by looking to the past. Because if you don't know where you've come from, then you won't know where you're going. So it's very important as we begin our celebration of Kwanzaa that we look to the past. And when we start our celebration each night, we look to the past, and as we started our celebration today, Brother Bruce asked permission of an elder in our group for us to continue. And that's one of the ways we begin our Kwanzaa celebration. If you're in your home, then you will say to whoever is conducting, who is the elder among us? And the person who has reached the oldest age at that gathering would be your elder. So we would ask that elder to give us permission to proceed. Once we have permission from our elder to proceed, then we begin to move to the use of tambiko and libation. In the ceremony of Kwanzaa, we use a cup. It's called the kikambo cha umoja, another Swahili term. And we're going to be using a lot of Swahili terms. Swahili is one of, about 300 languages that you'll find on the continent of Africa. And as Dr. Karinga developed the celebration of Kwanzaa, he chose the Kiswahili language because he found that it was the most common language used throughout Africa. So the Kiswahili language is the language that we'll be using as we describe the symbols and principles that are the basis and foundation of our celebration of Kwanzaa. So right now, we're talking about the beginning of the celebration where we pour libation. And in this cup, as you can see my cup right here, it's the Kikambo Cha Umoja. Usually we take the cup and we pour libations. We'll pour water into a plant if we're inside, or if we're doing outside, we'll pour libations into the earth. Because dust thou art, and dust thou shalt return. So one of the ways that we pay recognition and tribute to our sheroes and heroes who have gone before us is by pouring libation. And as we pour libations, we encourage those who are participants in our gathering to call forth their heroes. And everyone has a hero. Now, you may say right now, well, I don't have a hero, Dr. G. Well, your hero right now is your mother, your father, your grandmother, your grandfather, your uncle, your neighbor, your teacher. Anyone who teaches you to love is your hero. So when we call forth the ancestors, you think about somebody who has made an impact in your life. Now, maybe you have been to school, certainly not one of the traditional schools here, but maybe even schooling at home, and you've heard the name of African heroes. One that comes to mind for me at this moment is I Am Hotep. Now, this is what they didn't teach you in school. Have you ever heard that name before? I Am Hotep. I know you have a pencil and paper because I know Sister Dawn, each night that you all have been together and have studied the principles, have had assignments. So on your paper tonight, I would like you to write this name. I am H-O-T-E-P. I am Hotep. I am Hotep lived in the around 3200 BC. And he is the ancestor that I call upon tonight to join us, and I pay recognition to him because I Am Hotep was a teacher, he was a doctor, and he was a builder. And not just did he build buildings. For example, one of the buildings that he is given credit for building are the famous pyramids of Egypt. I live in Las Vegas, Nevada, and there's a pyramid here. It's been here about 20 years, and I'm expecting in the next 30 years, they will implode it or blow it up, because that's what they do with the buildings nowadays. They don't last long. But in Africa, over 3,000 years before Christ, they were building buildings that still exist today. And those buildings, boys and girls, called pyramids, were built to pay honor to kings and queens called pharaohs. And boys and girls, you are the descendants of those kings and queens to whom monuments built thousands of years ago in Africa still exist. So that makes you a prince or princess. And when you do the work, when you study, when you pray, when you go to school, when you pay attention in school, when you do your homework, it will prepare you for when you will become a king or a queen. You've got to do the work, boys and girls. And all of these things that this amazing man did, there's no record of him in history. There was no teaching of him in any school I ever attended. I have what's called a terminal degree. Nowhere ever in my studies in school did they ever mention the name I am Hotep. Or never ever did they tell me anything about all of the great scientists and mathematicians and teachers who lived in Africa. But I went back and studied, and I encourage you to go back and study your history, because I am confident that the majority of the boys and girls listening to me today are African Americans. We are African Americans, and it is something that we should be proud of. W.E.B. Du Bois. Get your pencils out, boys and girls. William Edward Burkholz, W.E.B.D.U.B.O.I.S. Okay? William Edward Burkholz Du Bois says that there is a two-ness about the American Negro, and that we would not divorce our African ancestry from our American heritage. And part of growing up, becoming the strong, positive leader that you are, you must study your past and embrace it. And as you study your past, and you will find out that being an African American means that your ancestors came from Africa, and that they came to America, and they were assimilated or worked into this culture. And I mean that in quotation marks, because when the first Africans, slaves came here, although the first Africans who came were freedmen, then we were indentured servants, and then finally they began bringing African people across the Atlantic Ocean on what's called the Middle Passage to America, and enslaved us as a people in order to run the economic engine of greed that this country used to build this great empire. But we have overcome, because we are African Americans. And it is important for us to celebrate the process of Kwanzaa, because it forces us to go back to experience what we call Sankofa. It's another Kiswahili term, and Sankofa literally translated means go back and fetch it. So boys and girls, if you need to be renewed each year, during the week of Kwanzaa, which is celebrated every year from December 26th to January 1st, use it as an opportunity to renew yourself, to make a commitment to study yourself, to learn your history, your culture. We cannot expect any individual, organization, or institution to do for us what we must do for ourselves. A man without a knowledge of his history, roots, and culture is like a tree without roots. That message was given to us by the Honorable Marcus Garvey, and we'll be talking about him a little later in our program. But tonight, we celebrate Kwanzaa. We celebrate by looking at our past and studying our past, by looking at our present and recognizing the situation that we are in and planning for the future. Kwanzaa celebrates values, history, principles, symbols, activities, and it celebrates it through the message of Dr. Maulana Karenga that he delivered to us called Kwanzaa. The heart of Kwanzaa is the work that we have to do for ourselves. And the heart of Kwanzaa is incorporated in a set of principles established by Dr. Karenga. And they are called the Nguzo Zaba. And there are a couple of things I'd like to do this evening. I know I have a time constraint, and I'd like to thank my loving wife for supporting me in my effort. She loaned me a book from her library. My wife is a former teacher. So that makes two teachers in this house, and together we have over 80 years of education service to the community. But I would like to share with the boys and girls who are listening tonight a story about Kwanzaa. And I'm going to do it by reading a book. And there's a real important significance about what I'm going to proceed to do. Because you see, boys and girls, we have to teach ourselves sometimes, and we have to acquire information primarily by reading. So it is very, very important that you begin to learn how to read. I've already indicated that our very first teachers are our parents. And I would encourage every parent to read, if it's something you have not done before, and you're looking for something you can do, not just to transmit the values of Kwanzaa, but just to help your children be positive and productive in life. Begin reading to your children every night when your children are in the crib. In the beginning, you can just tell them a story. In Dr. Amos Wilson's book that I referenced earlier, The Developmental Psychology of the Black Child, he recommends that pregnant mothers sing or hum to their children in the womb. And we have already established that we learn from the womb to the tomb. So parents, something you can do is begin reading with your children. One of the aspects of Kwanzaa that we're going to talk about later is gift giving. And the Swahili term that describes that process of Kwanzaa is called Zawadi. And Zawadi is the Kiswahili term that means gift. And since Kwanzaa is really geared to teach children and share the message of Kwanzaa and its value, and the process of celebrating those principles with our children is that they can in turn take the message that we share with them through the celebration of Kwanzaa and continue that celebration throughout their lives. As I've said before, our children are a message we send to the future. If you feel Kwanzaa and what it represents and the principles of Kwanzaa are significant and important to you, and for those of you who have joined me this evening, I'm confident you feel that way, then you can encourage your children to do Kwanzaa next year, 10 years, the rest of their life, and teach their children Kwanzaa. And when they start their Kwanzaa and call upon the elders in the future, you will be the elder and teacher that they will call upon. So read to your children, give them books. The number one gift that we encourage for gift giving, we frown upon the prevailing culture's gift giving of commercial gifts. We would recommend that if you are going to give your child or children in your family a zawadi during the Kwanzaa season, then give them a book. I have a book on my Kwanzaa table that I have written myself. You can handwrite a book. You can start by taking a couple of pages and just take a regular page, cut it up into 4 pieces, and write each of the principles of the day and staple it together. Give it to your child. That can be the first zawadi that you give your child. So give your children the gift of reading. Give them a zawadi, a book. There are other things, and as I go through my book, we'll talk about other kind of gifts like jewelry. You'll see I have some African jewelry on. I have a kanara, symboling my Kwanzaa participation, and I have a necklace that has an emblem of Africa. So now I'm going to start with my book, and this part of my program I've kind of struggled with. I have limited capabilities, but I'm going to do my best to share this message with you. It is a book called K is for Kwanzaa, Kwanzaa. Originally, the word Kwanzaa only has 1 A in it, but Dr. Karinga added an A to make Kwanzaa a 7-letter word to coincide with the 7 symbols, the 7 principles, and all of the 7s incorporated with the celebration of Kwanzaa. So this is a book. It's called K is for Kwanzaa. It's a Kwanzaa alphabet book, and it's written by Jawanda G. Ford, and it's illustrated by Ken Wilson Max. Now, this book, my wife informed me she acquired through the Scholastic Book Club. I don't know if you can see my what I call my travel kanara to the right here. It's a little small kanara that I acquired from the same company that publishes the book. It's called Scholastic. So I'm sure those of you who are familiar with book sales in schools, then this would be an excellent way, or you can go online to find out how you can get books and other information about Kwanzaa. But this book by Jawanda Ford is called K is for Kwanzaa. In the beginning, she starts off with a little statement, and basically it just says that Kwanzaa was created by Dr. Malana Karinga in 1966, and it's called First Fruit. That's what the word Kwanzaa means, first fruit. Now, right here, I don't know how well you can see this, but on this page is the principles of Kwanzaa. And each night during the week of Kwanzaa, and each night of this week, I applaud Sister Dawn and her organization of National Black Catholics and the Knights of Peter Claver for sponsoring tonight's activity. And each night this week, beginning on December 26th, we have celebrated a principle of Kwanzaa. And I'm going to go into the principles in some depth as we go through this book and as time allows. But I'd just like to share with you the 7 principles of Nguzo Zaba. These are the principles to live by. The first is the first day we celebrated Kwanzaa, we lit the Mashumu Saba. Those are the 7 candles. The middle candle is a black candle, and we light it and celebrate it on the first day, the principle of Umoja, unity. The first day, the black candle, we light it. And we say it's a principle which means to strive and maintain unity in the family, community, and nation. On the second day, we celebrated the principle of Kujichakulia. It means self-determination, to define yourself, name yourself, and create for yourself. On the third day, we celebrated the principle of Ujamaa. It means cooperative work and responsibility. Did you hear that? Cooperative work. We must do the work. And I love Ujamaa because it is where we begin to make the effort to live the good life. We work together. No man is an island. We are all part of a family, a community, a world. And in order to make that a better place together, we've got to pull together. We've got to work together. The next day, the fourth day's principle is Ujamaa, cooperative economics. We must work together to pool our resources and our finances, to be supportive of one another. We've got to be compassionate, loving, and understanding human beings. And Ujamaa is a process that we can begin to celebrate those and embody those principles into our life. On the fifth day, we celebrated Nia, which means purpose. It means to make our vocation the building and developing of our community and to restore our people to their traditional greatness. And I've spent a lot of time tonight talking about building our knowledge of history and self. Last night, we celebrated the principle of Kuumba, creativity. And this presentation today is an example of my creativity. It's probably a celebration of Kwanzaa that you've never seen before. And I can assure you it's a celebration of Kwanzaa that I've never done before. So I'm using the principle of Kuumba to do always as much as we can in the way that we can in order to leave our community more beautiful, beneficial, informed, and educated than it was when we came. That's why I'm using my Kuumba creativity tonight. And that was last night's principle. Tonight's principle is IMANI, faith. And faith is our faith. It is the teaching of our church. And I am the strong, dynamic, positive, self-assured African-American role model, as I said before, because of the 2 wonderful parents I had. My parents started my life teaching me to live by the 10 commandments. Then as I went out into the world, I found out that if I really wanted to be a good, active citizen, I needed to learn how to be trustworthy, loyal, helpful, friendly, courteous, kind, obedient, cheerful, thrifty, brave, clean, and reverent. And that helped me in my young life. But after I got to my terminal degree, after 30 years of education and schooling, then I began my journey of self. And I started my journey with a study of my ancestral past and found out that my great-great-great-great-great-great-grandfather was born on the island of Corsica in 1795. You need to begin your journey in study of your past. Ask your grandmother, your grandfather, the oldest member of your family to say to you, tell you about their history and their culture. So it's the 7 principles of Nkuzuzaba. I'm going to go through our book. I've got a few minutes left.
Yep, Dr. G, you're doing a wonderful job, and I appreciate all that you're doing. Got a couple of minutes to tie it all together, which you did very nicely with the 7 minutes, and then we'd like to allow any questions and answers, and also sharing of reflections. We want to have the youth especially, but even our elders, share their experience with Kwanzaa from your presentation tonight and from over the past week, and let us see what they have learned.
Well, I've really shared a lot of information, and I understand the time constraint. So what I'm going to suggest is that as a family, moms and dads, you can go to the library, you get this book. I'm charged, the homework that I'm giving you is to find this book or a book like this and read it to your children, because I do agree that it is very important for everyone who is interested in Kwanzaa to participate. And I've shared a lot of information about the history of Kwanzaa, what it's all about. Just one little quick part that I'd like to address in the celebration of Kwanzaa, and that's the symbols. So I've pretty much been through the celebration. We have our introduction, the Habari Gani. We do the salute, the Harambe. We did the libation. We called on our ancestors. Then we began to light the candles, and each night we lit the candle and discussed a different principle. And the final component of the Kwanzaa celebration are the symbols. And everything in our life is a symbol. And I'm using the scientific approach in sharing this with you. Everything in our life is a symbol. When you get to the corner in your car, you stop. Why? There's a symbol on the corner. It says stop. So everything in our life has a symbol. So in Kwanzaa, there are 7 symbols that I'd like to share with you. On your table, when you celebrate Kwanzaa, you should have mezoa. That's the key Swahili term. And the mezoa is the crop. Kwanzaa, oh, just a moment. We're going to hold on to that, Dawn. In the celebration of Kwanzaa, which means first fruit, Kwanzaa is celebrated maybe not as Kwanzaa, but the gathering of harvest is celebrated all over the world. Now, right now, Dawn is showing you one of the key components on the table. It's called mezoa. Now, in Swahili, it's muhindi, and it's corn. And what's significant about this particular crop that should be on your table is Dawn holds an ear of corn. That ear of corn represents her. And each kernel on that ear of corn represents her future generations. Just as her daughter has her own ear of corn, each kernel in that ear of corn represents her children, her grandchildren, her great-grandchildren, her great-great-grandchildren. So the muhindi or corn is really important on your Kwanzaa table. And when you talk with your family about the celebration of Kwanzaa, have an ear of corn, even if you have to go and buy a 6-pack of little frozen corn, have a piece of corn on your table so that each of your family members participating will have a piece of an ear of corn to know that that represents them and their future forever. We have thank you, sister, for lighting the candles. That's all the 7 candles in the background that Sister Dawn is showing us now are the Mushumu Saba. Those are the 7 candles representing the 7 principles. They are also represents the colors of the Bandera. The middle candle is a black candle. That represents us. The candles to the right are green, which represents our struggle. The candles to the left, the red represent our struggle. The green represent our future and our hope. The red, black, and green colors were given to us by the Honorable Marcus Garvey, who gave us the bandera. And the bandera is a red, black, and green flag. And here is a copy of what a bandera looks like. So you should have a bandera on your Kwanzaa table. So the candles are in a candle holder that's called the Kanara. And sister, I applaud you for your original Kuumba creation of your Kanara. And it sits on a mat. And the mat represents us. It represents our foundation. It represents where we've come from. So we have the mat on our table. Then we put the Kanara, which represents us as a people collectively. And then we have the candles, which represent the principles which we must live by in order to live the good life. Ashe, my brothers and sisters, Ashe.
Ashe, thank you.
Ashe.
Everyone, you can mute yourselves and unmute yourselves. And one, you can ask questions of Dr. G. And or two, you can share what Imani faith means to you, or any of the other principles or symbols that we've learned from this wonderful presentation. Again, I know y'all's names. I will start calling out if y'all don't volunteer, but I know you will.
Dr. Guerrier, this is Brother Bruce.
Yes, sir.
If I may, how
Go right
long,
ahead.
how long, sir, have you been doing Kwanzaa presentations? And did you do it in your original profession as a broadcast journalist in New Orleans?
Well, I'm long-winded, and I'll try to give you the short answer. In 1968, Dr. Jeff, who introduced me to Kwanzaa, went to the National Association of Black Social Workers convention. And at this convention in 1968, a young man made a presentation. His name was Malana Karinga. In 1968, Dr. Jeff brought Kwanzaa to New Orleans. Myself and my family went to the St. Mark's Community Church on Rampart in the French Quarter of New Orleans and celebrated Kwanzaa for the first time. I've celebrated Kwanzaa everywhere I've gone. I've celebrated Kwanzaa in prisons, Indian Springs Prison. I've celebrated Kwanzaa in the Moulin Rouge Casino here in Las Vegas. I've celebrated in churches and communities. And everywhere I go, and I've celebrated Kwanzaa in my schools as a school principal. Every year I'd have a Kwanzaa demonstration in my school. We cannot expect any other individual, institution, of organization to do for us what we have to do for ourselves. We have to communicate tonight. We have to exchange ideas. We have to share and love one another. If they cut us off, that's fine. If they let us go for 2 hours, let's do it. We got to do it for ourselves.
Daya?
I would like to say that I feel like the 7 candles, they're part of the church, and they are. I'm glad that the Catholic churches, like Americans, maybe they just have a tradition. Maybe they just have one tradition, like just Christmas, no other holidays. I'm glad. But Kwanzaa is all about celebrating African Americans, and
Yes.
It's good that people that don't have that much holidays, Americans that don't have that much holidays, they're invited to one.
Yes. And they can be proud of that.
Yeah.
They can be proud of their holidays.
And
I am proud of this young lady.
Yes, by all means.
This is the way we need to raise our children. This young lady shows no inhibition about expressing herself. And what we have to live the good life, not only do we have to learn how to live it, but we've got to learn how to share it with everyone else. This is a young woman, a very young woman, a child who's expressing herself, and that's what we have to do with our children. We have to give them knowledge and information and make them feel good about ourselves. That's what we've got to do with our schools.
Yeah.
If we really want to build a good life, there's two things we have to do. We have to start schools that help youngsters develop their own positive self-awareness based on their history and their culture that'll help them feel good about themselves.
Yeah.
And number two, we have to teach our youngsters to develop saleable skills. They can be God-given skills. People who are singers and dancers and artists say, oh, I do it for free because they love doing what the Lord has given them. But sometimes that's not easy to do, to identify creative talents in education. So then we need to teach students saleable skills.
So Chad, what did you hear
I'll
Dr.
try not to carry.
What did you hear Dr. G say to you? Translate it to what it means to you, what he just said.
I'm saying thank you that I'm sharing. I just feel like that sometimes that it's good to share your feelings in, because if you like keep those feelings inside, it makes you feel like alone, like you don't have anyone, like
Not
when
good.
you're
That's right.
someone there, but it makes you feel like deep down you don't have anyone in your heart. But when you share your feelings and people understand, that means that people know that you're okay. And because if you feel like something's wrong and you don't feel like you want to tell anyone,
Right.
you just have to tell them, because they could do something about it. They can say, I'll help you. Okay, I'll do that for you. Because if you don't share your feelings, they won't know what to do.
That's right. That's
Tell
key.
us where to send the check.
That's key.
People do exactly what that young lady just did and get paid for it.
Thank you. Okay, thank you, Chad.